Okay. So this is architecture of the framework which we are going to design, and this particular architecture of framework is divided into 5 layers. Okay, the first layer is input layer. This one, as you can see here. Okay, so I will discuss about it. Then second layer is test case layer, which is here. Okay, then we have automation Selenium layer. Okay, then we have application layer here, and then we have output. Okay. Now to execute this particular framework, we'll have a trigger which will be a manual trigger or can be a Jenkins trigger. That means the framework or the test cases which we'll design, that can be triggered through Jenkins or can be triggered through can be manually triggered. Okay, so actually this should come here at here actually. Okay, so if I talk about the input part, then first of all I'll have a config folder which will have config.properties. All the configuration related things I'll put in this config.properties. I'll show you how it looks. Okay, uh, Rupesh will talk about this manual trigger and Jenkins trigger. Just give me some time. Okay, and then in the config, after this config.properties, uh, and there will be test cases XML file. This will be the XML files in which all our scenarios will be there, like sanity test cases or module 1 test cases, module 2 test cases, and so on. So this will be the XML file. Again, it's an input file for us, and few of the scenarios might require data driven testing. So for that there will be testdata.xls file which will have all our test data in it. Okay, so these are 3 input files which we are going to have. Then we have this layer testng.test cases in which our actual test cases are written. Okay, which will have all the assertions and all, everything is mentioned in the inside this. Okay, so these test cases uses some methods to execute all those methods which are application specific, that are written in this particular layer. Okay, so in this we are following one design pattern which is either page object model or page factory. I'm following page factory. You can use page object model also if your website is static, but for me my website is not static, so probably I'm using page factory here. Okay, so this is the design pattern. For each page of my application under test, I've created one Java class which has all the web elements related to the respective page, as well as all the possible methods on that page are also mentioned. Okay, so this comes under application layer. Okay, then we have an automation layer which is Selenium layer, where we have written all the possible methods in Selenium. So the methods are like this. They have an interface first, then we have all those methods which are defined in interface, they are implemented in the respective classes. Okay, and the methods which are written here are used at both levels. Few of the methods are used at test case level, and most of the methods are used at application layer also. After the complete execution of this flow, output report is coming. Like, there are 2 things which are coming here. One is emailable report and second one is log files. Okay, so this is your output layer. So this is how our total framework look like. There will be many questions, I'll keep on answering it, but for now, is the basic idea clear? Okay, if I have to say from where it will start, so it will always start from this manual trigger or Jenkins trigger. Manual trigger is going and manually executing your XML file. That means right click and run as testng suite, something like that. Okay, so this will trigger scenarios. This will trigger the test cases. Okay, it will actually execute the XML files which are written here, which will in a way calls the test cases written in testng.test cases. These test cases require certain configurations, so those configuration will be read from config.properties. Okay, few of the test cases might take data from some Excel file, so for that data is written here, that is testdata.xls file. In this I have all my input data. Okay, so it's like a data driven testing is happening here. Okay, then after taking all the inputs from the config.properties or taking input from testdata.xls file, it will invoke methods which are written in our respective classes. Okay, say for example I have to check login. Okay, so for login I need one where to login and then what is the username and password. So the logging where to login will get from config.properties, then what is the test data that will get from this excel file, and then I'll start logging. That logic of logging in is written in this. Here we are calling that method and doing all the assertion part. Okay, so methods are written this. Here we are following one design pattern which is page object model or a page factory. For me, I'm using page factory. You can use page object model that we have already discussed also. So this is all our application layer. So all the logic which is related to the application is written here. Here we have written the test cases. Okay, both of them calls method of automation tool. So for us the automation tool is Selenium, so we have this automation layer which is actually the Selenium layer. In this all the test cases are written, so we have completed this part also. Then after that, after the execution of complete flow, a test report will be created, which I call it as emailable report. Okay, you can use certain third-party tools also for this. For now I'm using the one which is created by TestNG. And then for the complete flow there are certain log files are also created. Those log files are used for debugging purpose that we are keeping in application.log. Okay, and there will be a separate log folder which will be created, and in that we'll dump all our logs. So this is the flow. Any questions here? Okay, and this is the diagram everybody asks you in interviews. Like most of you have this question that what should be our diagram, how the structure look like, or how the architecture of the framework look like. So this is what you have to tell. And typically a few things like in real-time project, if I talk about, there are very few things which are added and they are application specific. Okay, so overall if you'll explain this complete flow, that is more than enough for any interview to crack. Okay, so that is what is interviewer is expecting you from you. There might be few questions which can be asked like why are you keeping in config.properties and so on, so we'll discuss that with time. But any questions still now? Yes, Rupesh, actually there was a space crunch here. Like this is a very big thing. I'll try to do the same thing through what happened. Okay, so I'll try to create this on uh, just a second. What I did, just a second. Okay, so I'll try to create everything on a on a Visio so that it can be explained little. I can explain more things here, but I'll now show you everything with respect to code, like each layer with respect to code. Okay, so any questions before that? Is it clear like what we are doing? Like there can be few more things which can be added, like here I have added this reading from XLS. Okay, similarly you can have some other XML files, or you can have a database here, so from database you can read. Like this there can be few more things which can be added, but more or less the main things will be this part. Okay, so let's discuss about same thing in with respect to code. Okay, so here this is my structure of the framework. Okay, here first of all I have this common libs interface, which is this interface. Okay, so in this particular interface we have created these many classes which were possible in Selenium. So we have web element controls, we have window handle controls, then we have text box, screenshots, JavaScript executor, frame handling, then drop downs, driver related interface, checkbox control, alert, action control, and so on. So all these are interfaces, okay, and we discussed these things in detail. Then for all these interfaces we have to implement the classes. Not all are implemented, so you can complete those which are left. But the actual implementation is written in it. And see here, according to this, like you can see that it is totally separated from the remaining framework. So if something changes, like going forward you don't like the Selenium, there is some other good tool which came in market, you want to replace it with that, so you can do that here. You just have to replace this particular layer only, right? Then okay, then so this is one layer. This two packages consist of one layer. Even you can separate it out by creating by keeping these two in another package. Maybe you can name it as Selenium layer, something like that. Okay, then we discuss about the design pattern. So this is just your for your reference. This is my application. So this is the application layer we have. Here is the application layer, right? Here we are following design pattern as page factory. So here also you can see for each page I have created one separate class file. I've completed sign in thing. So here you can see I am using page factory. So the application which we are automating using this framework is this mercurytravel.co.in. Okay, so all the web elements which are possible on this sign in page I've defined here. Here you can see I have this email ID, password, sign in button, sign out button. Then here we are going to deal with text box, checkbox, and web elements. So text box, instance of text box I created here. Web element control I created here. Both of them are initialized in their constructor, and then we initialize the page factory also, right? Then all the possible methods. So the possible method on this page is that I have to log in successfully. So I have this email ID, I can enter username here, I can enter password here, and then I can click on it, right? So that is what I have done here. You can see first of all I'm writing inside my email ID. So this is how I'm writing. I'm using one text method from text box, then again method from text box, because password field is also like a text box. So set text, and we are passing password, value of password in it. Then we are clicking on login button. So here is my login button, so I'm going and clicking on it. Okay, so this method is to click log in to this particular application. Then we have a sign out. Like after logging in, let me show you. Okay, so after logging in I have this sign out option, so I can just click on this sign out, okay, and can log out. So here I've written one simple method, sign out element dot click sign out button. Okay, so these are possible methods on the sign on page. Like this, if you think there are many other possible methods, you can simply list them out here. Okay, so any questions till now? Okay, so these are the methods written. Like here is the application layer, right? Now let's discuss about this test case layer. I'll write test cases which will be called from this particular layer, right? So I'll go to Eclipse. Here in my test cases, this is the layer for test cases. In this particular layer I have written test cases in this sign in test cases. So here you can see one test case I have created as navigate to sign in with and verify the title. So what we are going to do is in this on this application uh, I just click on this sign in button and I am on sign in page, right? So here you can see I have written one method, navigate to sign in page and verify title. So just looking at the name of the method, you can identify what we are doing. And here what we are doing on my home page, I'm just calling this navigate to sign in page. If you remember, last time we wrote this method in which we are just clicking on sign in button. Okay, and then as I told you, every test case must have as an assert statement. So here is this assert equals. Okay, we are calling common driver dot get title method to fetch the title from the page, and here I'm doing something like the title of the page, it should be this ontra double colon and then login. This is the title of the page. Okay, so what I'm doing, I'm keeping this particular configuration in my config.properties. So here you can see this login page title, this is the title, so I'm keeping it in configuration file. Okay, you can create one more properties file with the name maybe verification dot properties and so on. Okay, so how I'm reading from there, that I'll tell you in some time, but you can see that logging page title I'm reading from some property file. This is login page dot title, this I'm reading from here. Okay, so this is one assertion for me, so this is one test case for me. As I told you, every test case must have an assertion, so here I put this assertion. Similarly, second test case for me is verify sign in with correct credentials. So I'll pass username, correct password, and then we'll log in. So this is the method I'm calling login to Mercury, and here I'm passing email ID and password. You can make this also as parameterized, so I can make it email ID, then string password, and you can change this to let me change it to pass, and let me change this all to email. Okay, so here you can change this to email. Okay, and here you can change it to pass. Okay, now to execute this in my this test case, I can call this username and password. Okay, so I'll tell you how I have written this, but for now I'm just passing it, or maybe I can put it here, and here I can create two variables, one with name string user or email ID. Okay, and email ID I have kept in my config.properties. Here is the email ID. Here I'll pass password, so it will be password, and password I have defined in my config properties like this. So here you can simply change it to this, and here you can pass email ID and password. Okay, so this is one test case for me where I'm writing the data from config file, and then I'm putting an assertion. What assertion I'm putting, that after logging in, if I log in successfully, here XYZ at 123 is the password. When I log in, here it is showing my name, welcome Saurabh, right? So same thing I have done here, welcome, then space, then my name is, I'm reading from configuration file, so here is my configuration file in which I have kept my user first name. Okay, so this is how you will write test case. And then third test case I have written is verify sign out, and just I'm clicking on sign out. After that I am again verifying, like here if you see, after sign out this text changes to welcome guest. Okay, so what I'm doing here, I've kept default username also in my config.properties. So here is my config.properties in which default username is there, and default username is guest. So after logging out, it should show uh, welcome guest, right? So this is how I am writing test cases in my test case layer. Now one more thing you might have observed, that I have not written anything to invoke the browser and all. Okay, so like I was doing it in the last class, in my base scenario I'm writing all this thing in my base scenario and extending it, uh, that means I'm inheriting that. Okay, so last time there was some issue with the test ng version, so it was not able to execute, but now it's working fine. So here you can see I have this base scenario with me. Okay, so in my base scenario, first of all I'm defining all the variables which I need in this particular test case. Like I'm going to use common driver, I'm going to use homepage of Mercury, sign in page, then to read from properties file I need this properties, and then the config file name, like where is your config file. Okay, so config file I have defined here. Then I have written one method in my utility class which is get property, so I'll tell you about this. For now just skip it. So this I'm doing in my constructor, like reading from the property file I'm doing in my constructor. And then I've written one before class. In before class I've called one method setup, okay, in which I'm doing all this setup part, where first of all I'm invoking the browser. Now even the configuration of browser type I have kept in my config.properties. So here is my config.properties. In this I have this browser type, so this browser type should be Chrome, so this also I've kept here. Okay, uh, where is it? Base class I was at, yeah. So this is how I'll configure my Chrome. Now if you want to change it to Firefox, you don't have to go and change in your class file. You can directly change in this config.properties, and when you'll execute it will read whatever configuration you will keep there. Okay, so any questions till now? See, this you will learn more when you will practice it. I can just explain it, but you learn it once you practice it. Once you go through the complete flow, then you'll be able to understand how the things are flowing. Okay, so in my base scenario, uh, first of all I initialize my common driver, then home page, sign in page, then open the browser. I navigated to the URL. See here, the base URL also I've kept in config.properties. So here is my base URL. This is the site. So here I've kept in my base here. Why I've kept it here? Because most of the time this will be the URL. The reason is that when you'll real time, when you'll test, you'll not test directly on your host name. Okay, you can have multiple environments with you, like they can be based on your IP, uh, there can be one QA environment, there can be one dev environment, you have to execute this automation on any environment. So that's the reason I've kept even my configuration config.properties, this I mean URL also in this. Okay, so in a way I'm reducing as much uh, dependency on the code, so that everything can be read from config.properties. Okay, so this comes under all these things comes under here, test ng test cases. This is the layer where you'll be reading the config property. So I'll come to this data driven part later, but yeah, I've read from config.properties, then I executed the flow which called the method from this design pattern defined, which called method from here. Even some of the methods were called from here. That's why there is interaction of this automation layer with both. Okay, so yeah, that's all about the flow. And talking about the emailable report, so let's first execute and then probably I'll show you. So here, when I have to execute it, I have this folder which is test cases XML file. Okay, so this is same folder which is mentioned here. Okay, in this I created one sanity test cases XML file, in which I'm executing all the sanity test cases. See here, groups I've mentioned as sanity. From which class? For now I'm just calling from one particular class. And in this particular class, if you'll go, I've defined all the methods as sanity. Okay, one more point, in my base scenario class, I've kept always run as true. Why I've kept always run as true? Because no matter which group it is running, I want for every group to run. I want these test cases to be run for all the groups. Okay, otherwise you have to explicitly mention the group name. But I kept it always run, so no matter which group it will execute, all the method, like whichever class will extend this, before class will be executed and then after class will be executed. Okay, so now I'll execute it from XML file, right click, run as testng suite. See, you can see that three test cases were executed. First navigated to sign in page, then after that it executed logging page, and then it sign in, and then it performed sign out. So all the three test cases are executed and they all are passed. Now if I go to this test output folder, here you can see I have this emailable report. Right click, open with web browser. So here is my report. All the three test cases were executed. Pass. Okay, so is the flow clear now? Rupesh, Arun, Apurva, any doubt, any questions? I know there will be many questions here. Yes, no, any questions, guys? Okay, not for now. Sure. Okay, so let's see this config folder. Like I've written one method to read from this config.properties. Okay, so for that what I did is I created one utility folder. Here is my folder. In this I created a package with name utility, in which I'm keeping some of the utilities which I need in my framework. And this is also one of the interview question. I guess Rupesh, you asked this, that what are the different utility methods, right? So let's see what all are the utility methods I can write. So for now I have written only one method in my utils class. Also, I'm calling my Excel driver as utility. I have written one more method, that is read data from Excel from data provider. I mean using data provider. Uh, then uh, read data from the data provider, and one method is written here. Okay, Rupesh, you have a question. If we are passing everything in config.properties, then what is the use of Excel? Good question actually. See, in config.properties I have kept to show one single scenario. What if you need to test same scenario with multiple test data? Let's say you have 10 username and 10 pair of username and password. Okay, so one way will be create again a config.properties, and in that keep all those 10 data and then read from there. Or second way is using Excel sheet. Okay, so this is specially for data driven testing. Other one is one single scenario. Okay, and currently, like once I'll teach you about this Excel driver, I'll teach you about this data driver, then we'll change our code in such a way that we can execute data driven within our framework. Okay, does this answer your question? Okay, so let's proceed then. Now what I'm going to do is let's talk about this properties file. First of all, what is a property file? So in Java, to put any configuration, this is a standard. Okay, and especially it's a standard in Java only. Like others use some other format, like C# uses app.config or web.config, whereas our Java use config.properties or whatever name you want to give dot properties. Now how this file looks like: this file is a key value pair. You have a key, then a separator which is generally equal to, and then its value. So it's like a key value pair here. Base URL, you can see this is key and this is value. Okay, so to read this file, Java provides us one utility, which is this properties. So properties is a class. See here, the properties class represent a persistent of set of properties. The properties can be saved to a stream or loaded from a stream. Each key and its corresponding value in the property list is a string. So here you can see we have a key value pair, so both are read as a string. Okay, so this is a class which is provided by Java. Okay, then to read from any input device we need input stream. Okay, so what is it? See, this abstract class is the superclass of all the classes representing an input stream of bytes. What is input stream? Whenever you have to read data from something, how you will read it will come as a stream means just like water stream is there, like in rivers water flow. That is an example of stream. Similarly, in case of file, strings will flow, okay, one by one. When you'll read, like this is the file, when you'll read it, so data will come one by one, line by line. Okay, so this is stream. First of all, this package utility is coming, this is one stream, then next line is coming, then third line, then fourth line, and so on. So a stream of data is coming. Okay, so there can be many input devices. Okay, so this is one abstract class, which is super class of all the other streams. We are going to read uh, file stream, but later on. For now, I don't need anything. Okay, here is also I need file input stream. Okay, so I defined this input stream instance of this, then I defined one property instance of property, then I'm initializing my input stream. Basically, from where I want to read, I want to read from a file. Which file? The file which is kept here. This is the file config.properties. Okay, so here I'll pass the complete path of config.properties. So it will read that complete config.properties, will keep inside its stream. Then there is a method to convert this stream of data into property key value pair, and the method is dot load and return property. I'll repeat what I have said. To read this config.properties into key value pair, we need one of the utility from Java, and you can see it is from Java utils. Java also has its util class, so from there it is coming java.util. Okay, in that we have this properties class. What it do, it reads the config.properties into key value pair. So here you will get values in key value pair. Okay, to read, it has a method called load, where you need to pass from which file or from which stream you have to read. Okay, so stream is stream of data. Okay, so there is an input stream which is abstract class, and it is super class of all other streams. So one of the stream is file input stream. We need this only. We need to read from file. So I'll pass the file name here. It will read this particular file in form of stream, and we are passing here, and then it will load in form of key value pair. Okay, so yeah, that's how uh, you will read from a config property. To demo it, I can create a test folder. In this, I'll create one class file, demo config.property or demo config file. Okay, I'll keep this public static void main here. Now here first of all I'll create one instance of properties class, and I'll call instance of utils dot get property. As this get property method is a static method. Oh, I forget to discuss about static method. Okay, so we'll discuss about for the static later, but for now you can simply say that static methods are those which does not require a variable to be instantiated. They are at class level. So just by calling the class name dot method you can call. So here I'm not creating any instance of utils class. Utils dot get property will give me the vet value, and here you have to give the file name. So file name will be I have this config actually I've written in one of the method, one of the test case. I can read from there. So here is my path of my config.properties. So I can keep here, and then to see if it's working or not, here I'll call okay, what is the issue? I guess okay. Okay, so I need to keep it in try catch. Now system.out.println, here I can say property dot get property dot get. It's just like the way we had in what hash maps. In hash map, if you remember, we had key value pair. So it's just like that only. It's just that the key value pair are already defined, and they are defined in one of the external file, which is this. So here you can see I can copy paste this configuration. Let me copy it, and then I'll put here. I can copy paste some more properties. Okay, then I'll have email ID also. So email ID I'll put here, and then in my config.properties I have default username. I can call this also. Okay, so when I execute it, right click, run as Java application. Okay, so see here, Chrome, this guest. Okay, now there are few questions. Jasmeet, you have asked, will we use same utility for Excel? No, there is other utility. We'll talk about that once we'll start with Excel sheet. Next is Arun, you have a question where we set property. So here we have setting the property. This is the config.properties. Here we have the configuration file. In utils class I have written method to read it, and in demo config file I am using it. Okay, Rupesh, you have a question. Instead, we can read from Notepad. Will we use the same method? No. For Notepad, the extension is .txt. Your Java will not read .txt. It will read only .properties. If you want to read from .txt, then you have to write separate code. Then in that case, what you'll do using what do you call this file input stream here? Just a second. Where it is in my utils. Okay, it was in utils only. uh, uh, in my utils, when I have to read from a txt file, here when I was doing this property.load, will not have this line, will not have this line. After getting everything in input stream, we have to write our own logic where we will iterate over each line. Okay, so there is a method called dot line, input stream dot line, and then you'll read, and that's little complex. Okay, so that's little different thing. We'll talk about that later, but for now we need to read from properties file. So for reading from for properties file, this is the simple method. I'll repeat quickly. To read from an input device, we have input stream. Okay, this is the input stream. I just created its variable. Then properties is the class from java.utils. Then this input stream, I'm reading everything from file input stream. This is my file name I'm passing. So whatever will be there in file, it will be there in stream. Okay, so to discuss about in detail, like about these input stream and output stream, let me quickly go to Java docs. Just a second, let me search. I guess this is the API. Okay, so here is the file input stream and it has input stream. So from here you can learn about it in detail, like what all are the methods available, and just a second, there was one more tutorial for it. Just a second, let me search. There was one good tutorial for it. Okay, I'm not getting that. I can teach you from here. Okay, I'll try to explain myself. Okay, here I can create a new slide. Okay, so how a stream looks like. Uh, just a second. So it's like this. There is a pipe. Okay, it's like a pipe. From here you can read from some external folder, some external source. Like I have a file. So from file I'll read. We'll call this method, which will insert data from here. Okay, so there will be a file. From here you will put stream. Okay, uh, like the data, like whatever is there in your file will read from here one by one, and then that will be accumulated in one of the input stream at Java level. Okay, so when I'm writing my code, so this input stream, this file input stream, here we are passing this file name. Whatever is there in this particular file, that is being accumulated as in this input stream. So it's like a long stream of string values which it has read from file. Okay, probably in the next class I can take this topic in detail. For now you can just consider that it's a stream, uh, and then to take it in key value pair, I'm calling a method dot load, where I'm passing this input stream, which will take that value in key value pair and will return in this property format. Now when I have to use it, so it's like property dot get. So pass the key, it will give you its value. Pass the key, it will give its value. Okay, Rupesh, these input output probably I'll discuss in next class with proper PPTs and all. I didn't get time to prepare the PPTs, so probably we'll discuss. But I guess it's clear. It's very simple. You don't have to worry about much while having this using this Selenium. But still, we'll discuss about it. So here I've created this method for reading from config properties. Okay, and you were talking about .txt, so no need of reading from txt, though you can simply search on Google. You will find hundreds of logic how to read from a txt file in key value pair, but Java follows a standard where we keep dot properties file, so I'll recommend you to read from there. Okay, any other questions here? Anyone, any questions in this? So same logic I have applied while calling this in the base scenario. If you remember, so here I created one instance of properties config property, and then this is my file name, and then I'm reading this dot get property, this file name. Now config dot property has everything in key value pair, so wherever I wanted, I just called this method get property, and then key is passed. So I needed the browser type, so browser type is defined in my config dot property as Chrome, so this is what is read here. Okay, like this everywhere, wherever you want, you can do. Okay, anyone, any questions here? Okay, so then only thing which is left in this, there are many things which are left. One of the thing which is left is reading from Excel sheet and doing the data driven testing. Okay, so for that I have created this Excel driver utility. Okay, so I'll try to explain you this now. Generally in interviews questions are not asked from this Excel driver, I mean from methods of POI. They generally ask you which jar file you have used or which utility you have used, so just tell them I've used POI Apache, though I'll explain you everything, that what is the format and all the things, but generally in interviews questions are not asked from this. This is what my observation. I never encountered any question from POI class file. Okay, so for this I'll go to QDecub site, and then in the tutorials we'll go to Selenium tutorials, and I have this article written for Excel, working with Excel. Okay, so in this tutorial we'll learn how to integrate Microsoft Excel sheet with Selenium WebDriver. Selenium does not provide any inbuilt feature to read from an Excel, so we have to take help from third-party tools like POI from Apache. Apache POI is an open source library provided by Apache Software Foundation to read and write Excel files. Okay, so again it's an open source, freely available. From where to download, just go to on Google search POI jar files. Okay, go to its link, and here the latest stable release available is POI Apache POI 3.16. so just download this. Here you will have binary distribution, source distribution, so always download from binary, because source is like source code. Okay, we don't need code, we need executable files, right? So just download from here. Okay, so let it download. Even I don't have the latest version. I have 3.15. recently only it is launched, so here in my libs folder I'll keep it. Okay, so by the time it downloads, let's talk about other things. Okay, so what are like before starting with POI Apache, you should know what are the different interfaces and classes which are available in POI Apache with which you can work. So we'll talk about them. Now there are two formats of Excel sheet which are available. One is .xls format, another one is .xlsx format. This is the older version, this is the newer version. Okay, now important classes in POI Apache. The important classes are, we have two formats, .xls and .xlsx. Earlier, when .xls format was there, that time POI had these classes. Everyone has HSSF appended to it. Interfaces are these four: workbook, sheet, row and cell, and the implemented classes are HSSF workbook, which is for .xls, and XSSF workbook, which is for .xlsx. Okay, Rupesh, you have a question, what does it stand for? I'm not sure. They are something from POI. I'm not sure what is the full format of it. You just have to remember that this is for .xls and this one is for .xlsx. Okay, so these are certain classes. As the name suggests, the first one is for workbook. In workbook we have sheet, so this one is for sheet. Then in sheet we have rows, so this is for row. Each row has certain cells, so this is for cell. Okay, so these are important classes and interfaces available in POI, which we are going to deal with. Okay, so as mentioned, you can read about it. Workbook is tool for workbook, sheet is for sheet, row is for rows in sheet, and cell is for cells in row. Now let's list down all the possible method which you might require while working with an Excel sheet. Okay, so here in our framework we might not require all the methods, but I have created this Excel workbook uh, so that in near future, even if you have to create a new workbook or new Excel sheet, you can do that. So whatever possible methods are there in Excel, I tried to write them down, though some of them are not used, but maybe in near future you might require them. So that's why I have listed all those methods. So the methods are, first of all, when you'll always start with creating a workbook, right? So first method is create a workbook. After creating a workbook, we have to open it. So open a workbook. Next is create a sheet. See, think everything with respect to how you do it manually. Okay, so here you can see when I'm creating a Excel sheet, I'll do right click, then new, and then Microsoft Excel, right? This is what I do. Then I give it a name. Say for example, I'm giving it test data. So I just created a workbook. So this is what I'm going to do in first method, just creating a workbook with some name. Next step will be I'll open it. So I'll go and open this workbook by double clicking it. There is a separate method through POI, but you'll open an Excel sheet, right? After opening a workbook, next will be you will create a sheet. You will create a sheet. Though for you there is a sheet already created, but actually meaning is that we are renaming it to some sheet. Let's say uh, data. Okay, so this is one name I have given to this sheet. Okay, though only first sheet is with us, for other sheets I have to click on this new sheet and then give it a name, right? So that is what we are going to do through our code, data 2, data 1 maybe. Okay, so this is what creating a sheet is. Then to save a file, like after doing some work you need to save this file. So to save, we have a save method. Sometimes you need to save it with a new name. So you go to file and then go save as and then save it with a new name, right? So that is what we are going to do with this method, save a workbook with the new name. Then after saving or doing all the things, you need to just close a workbook. Okay, so for that I have written one method. Now when your sheet has some data, then to get how many rows has data, we have written a method to get called get row number, because while we'll be reading this Excel sheet, we'll be iterating over each row and then getting the data, right? Some kind of logic will write where we will iterate over each row and then get data from each row. So to get the number of rows from an Excel sheet, we have this method getting row number from a sheet. Then going over a particular row, you need how many cell has data. So getting cell number from a row of sheet. This method will do that. Then reading data from a cell, like if some of the cell has data, to read it we'll write one method. Then in the last we'll write one method, one logic to write into Excel sheet. Okay, not only reading but writing is also important. So we have one method where we are writing into a cell. So these are the methods which we are going to create. Any doubt in any of the method? It's very simple. The way you do manually, that's what I've mentioned here. Creating a workbook, opening a workbook, creating a sheet, saving a workbook with new name, closing a workbook. After that, getting row number, getting cell number from a row, then reading from a cell and writing into a cell. These are major methods which you are going to work with, and I mentioned it. Okay, Rupesh, you have a question. Can we iterate by logic, like particular cell contains this, so read this? Yes, everything you can do. That's just logic. Logic is at your end. So let's first learn about how to read, and then probably you can extend that to whatever logic you want. Okay. Okay, so yeah, now I have to start with the code. Before that, let's have a break for 10 minutes and then we'll continue with this. Any questions before we go to break? Okay, so let's have a break for 10 minutes and then we'll continue with Okay, so we can continue now. Any questions before I start? Okay, so let's start with the Excel reader. So I'm creating one. Okay, so first of all, as discussed that we are going to read from an Excel sheet and we have to write into an Excel sheet. So I need one input stream and one output stream. So I'm calling my input stream as file reader. So just a second. Filter rename to. Okay, and here it will be refactor rename. Okay. Rupesh, you're saying can we write simple code and then we'll be able to it's a simple code only, just let me start. It's a simple code only. Okay, so what we are doing is uh, these are 11 methods which I mentioned. Okay, creating a workbook and so on. Okay, so for all these things I'm writing the methods. Okay, so here first of all, to read we need input stream, to write we need output stream. Then I'm creating one variable for my workbook. So again let me just rename it also. Actually it's my old code, so it's not refactored. Okay, so I created one variable for workbook and one for Excel file name. So 4 variables I just created. Then first method is create a Excel workbook. Okay, here I'm passing the file name as an argument and throw exception is also there. This file name is the complete path of the file name. Okay, the complete path and then the file name. Okay, now as discussed earlier, whenever we are handling any string, first thing we do is do a trim check. Okay, so I'm just done a trim check, then I'm doing an empty check, and if file name is empty, like if white spaces are passed here, then I'm simply throwing an exception invalid file name. Or if file already exists. Okay, so there is a class in java.io, this is which has a file, which is basically to handle file, any type of file. Okay, so here I'm just checking if a file exists. So how you'll check, whenever you do a new, it will try to create a new object, right? So here new file means it will try to create a new file with this name, whatever you'll pass here. If this already exists, then we'll simply throwing exception file already exists, right? Any questions till now? Okay, then we know that the extension of our Excel sheet can be either .xls or can be .xlsx. So here I've just put a check. If file name is .xlsx, then initialize it with XSS workbook. So if you remember when we were discussing about here, for .xlsx we have XSSF workbook. So here that's what I've done. Similarly, if it is XLS, then initialize it with HSSF workbook. And if by mistake user passed any invalid name, then I'm simply throwing an exception invalid file extension, because we can read either this or this. Okay, now whatever is there in that file, I'll put in file output stream and initialize my file writer. Then as it's an empty file, so for now, like to write into an Excel sheet, Excel workbook, we have a method called write, and this whatever is there in my output stream, that will be written here. and then we'll close the writer and then close the workbook. Okay, so it's simple and it's like creating a new file. What we have done is two things we initialize. Four variables we created. First one is input stream and second one is output stream. So this is to read and this is to write. Okay, this is my workbook, instance of workbook, and this is just a file name. Now here, whatever workbook I want to create, what name I need, I just pass this string attribute. Then first of all doing a trim check, then doing an empty check, then checking whether the file already exists or not, then doing a proper extension check. After that, whatever is there in that file, for now it will be empty. My file writer, I'm initializing it with file output stream with this file. Whatever will be there in this, we are writing into workbook. Though it is empty for now, but it will create an empty workbook. I'm just closing my writer and I'm closing this workbook. So that's how you will create a workbook. Any questions on this? Okay, these things you will just try to understand for now and practice at your home. Once you'll write yourself, then you will be able to understand it. I've written it like 5-10 times, then only I remember each and every line. Okay, so like first time I googled and then wrote this complete code. Okay, but to teach you, like I have to remember each and every line, so for that I've read it like 5-6 times, then only I remember it. So even you will understand it properly once you'll write yourself. Okay, but yeah, any doubt till now? Okay, after creating a workbook, next step will be to open the workbook, or if there is already a workbook created, we have to open that. Okay, so again I'm passing the file name here. It will be the complete path name. We're doing a trim check, then we are doing an empty check. Then we are checking whether that file exists or not. If that file does not exist, I cannot open it. So here I put a negation, right? Same thing, I check if that file exists. If not, then throw an exception, file does not exist. Okay, then whatever is there in that file will take in input stream. Okay, then this file name, just for my complete reference, what I'm doing, I'm keeping it in one private variable, because this file name is an argument level variable. It is not available outside. So what I did, I just created one private variable here and put that value here so that I can use this outside. Okay, now this input stream, it's in form of a stream. We need it in workbook format. So for that, POI Apache provides us a class called workbook factory dot create. What it will do, whatever input stream you have, it will convert it into workbook format. If you remember, in case of properties file, we called a method dot load that converted your input stream into key value pair. Here this workbook factory dot create will convert my input stream into a workbook, and that we are assigning in my workbook. So in a way we have opened the workbook. Okay, any questions? Anyone, any questions here? Okay, then after that, after opening the workbook, let's say you wrote something, then you have to save it. So to save the file, whatever is there in that Excel file, write into output stream, write into workbook and close it. Done. Okay, if you want to save it with a new name, then you have to pass the new name. Again we'll do a trim check on my new name, then do a empty check, then we'll check whether it already exists or not. After that, whatever is there in this new file name, put it into output stream, write into file and close it. Done. Okay, So you just have to remember everything is in output stream and input stream. Input you are reading, output you are writing. So whatever is there in your file, like this is my file name, whatever is there in output stream, write into workbook and close it. Okay. Then to close the workbook, we have simply calling this method excel workbook.close file reader.close if it is open. Okay, so this will not check whether you have saved or not. It will just simply close it. If you want to save, then you have to call save first and then close. Next is create sheet. This is a method. Okay. Now, in all these methods, I'm doing certain checks. So all those checks are very important when you're writing a framework, because creating a sheet is just one method away. Here is the method create sheet, workbook dot create sheet. This will create a sheet, but we are writing all these things so that uh, exception exceptions can be handled. So here what we are doing, first of all we are doing the trim check for sheet name. Then we are checking if that sheet name I mean empty check of that sheet name. Then we are checking whether that sheet exists or not. So for that, what you can do in my Excel sheet, what I do how to check that sheet exists or not, I just check the name. So similarly here there is something known as get sheet. Okay, you will call a method called get sheet. If that sheet exists, then it will not be a null value, it will be a proper sheet, will be which can be get. But if that sheet is not existing, if a sheet with that name is not existing, then you will simply throw an exception sheet sorry, I said other way around. We don't want that sheet to be exist. So if that is not null, then we'll throw an exception sheet already exists. If it is null, then we'll create a sheet. Okay, very simple. I created an instance of sheet class, sheet interface, which is there in POI. Then I get that sheet. If that sheet is null, then I'll create. If it is not null, then I'll simply throw an exception sheet already exists. Okay, any doubt here? Anyone any doubt here? Okay, after creating a sheet, next step will be to get number of rows from that sheet. Again, very simple. First we'll do a trim check, then we'll do an empty check, then we'll create, I created an instance of sheet, get that sheet. If that sheet is null, then simply throw an exception, sheet does not exist. If sheet is not null, then the method is get last row number. This will return you the number of rows from a sheet. Okay, any doubt? Any questions here? Next is get cell count of from a sheet from a row. So here I am passing two arguments. One is sheet name and second is row number. Okay, so first I'll do a trim check, then I'll do an empty check. Again I check that sheet exists or not. Then we are passing that if I row is less than 1. Okay, we want user to give this functionality that row numbers for him can start from 1, so that logic can be made easy. If row is less than 1, then we'll simply throw an exception row index starts from 1. Okay, then we'll get that row and we'll check if row is null. If that row does not exist, that means if row is not there, that means no cell is there, so I'm simply returning 0. Else, if row exists, then we are simply calling a method get last cell number. Okay, any questions here? Okay, so next is after getting the row number, after getting the cell number, next is we need to get data from a particular cell. Okay, so get cell data from a particular sheet, from a particular row, from a particular cell. Okay, again I'm doing some trim check, empty check, trim check, empty check, then null check, after that valid row numbers. Okay, after that I created a row, instance of row, get that row, I'm passing -1 because in Excel sheet row number always starts from 0. Okay, so that's why I'm keeping -1 here. Okay, one thing could be done is you can remove this check and from outside you can call from 0. Okay, uh, okay, Rupesh, you're saying can we go a bit slow? Okay, tell me where you're lacking. I am asking questions but no one is responding. So tell me what exactly is not clear. Okay, you're saying all confusion. Okay, tell me what exactly is the confusion. Let's start from maybe we can start from beginning again, not an issue. Is this point clear that why I created these two things? I'm asking for to everyone, so please respond. Uh, is it clear that why I created input stream and why I created output stream? Okay, so especially this input stream is to read and this is to write. Okay, then to handle a workbook I created an instance of workbook. Then this variable I'm just keeping for now. Let's forget it. We'll talk about it once it will come. Okay, Rupesh, you're saying like we are just looking at the code and first if we think and then write code we'll get it. Okay, actually it's a very long code and if I'll write here it will take complete 2 hours of the code. That's why I'm just going through the code. I'll try to make it simple. See, what you have to do is you have to create a workbook. Okay, what do you do when you have to create a workbook? You will go right click, new, and then create a workbook. I mean just select the workbook, give it a name and save it. Okay, right, this is what you do when you create a workbook. Same thing if I have to do through Excel, through my code, what I'll do here in my code, uh, first of all you also do these checks. Like if I create here a new sheet and I'll give it the same name, test data, and try to save it. Okay, it's different thing which created. I'll create a new Excel sheet. Okay, if I create a new Excel sheet and I give it the same name, test data, press enter, it will, I mean, it will not allow me. See, it's hung actually, but it will not allow me to create another file with same name, right? So that's what I've done here. When I was passing the file name, first of all I'm doing a trim check. This is to remove white spaces from the end. Then I cannot save any file uh, without a name. Okay, it's hung, it's stuck. Let it get clear. Okay, so here what I was saying is that I cannot save a file without a name, so that's why I'm putting is empty, an empty check. If file name is empty, then I'm simply throwing an exception, file name invalid file name, and that's what you'll get when you'll try to create a file without any name, right? So any doubt till now? Okay, next is as told earlier that we need to check that you cannot create two files with same name. Actually it's still stuck, it's not responding. But what I meant to say is that you cannot create a file with same name. So here I'm doing a check that if that file already exists, then throw an exception, file already exists. Clear till now? Okay. Then next is, when you have to read an Excel sheet, it should be a correct format. You cannot read workbook, you cannot read a Word file as an Excel sheet. It should be a proper format, right? So that's what I'm doing here. I'm first checking if the file name ends with XLSX. If you'll go and check any extension of any file, let me open here. Okay, so every file has an extension. Here it is, it's .jpg, right? If I create a file which is a Excel file, test, when I create this, if you check its extension, it is .xlsx, right? Okay, so here I'm checking if the file name which I passed here, if it contains xlsx at the end, then initialize it with this. If it is having xls, then initialize with this. Okay, Rupesh, you have a question. What we will pass if uh, if it's a file name, if it's just no, you have to give the complete extension. Whenever you pass any file in Java or in any code, you have to give file name along with its extension. We never pass just the file name, we give the complete name, file name along with extension. Okay, so probably I can do one thing. I can create one demo file and we can proceed, we can write side by side. So demo Excel driver. Okay, in this particular class I'll first of all create instance of Excel driver. Excel equal to new Excel driver. Okay, here it will be Excel dot. First of all you have to create a workbook. Okay, sorry, main method is not there. Okay, so here first of all I'll to create, just a second. Create a workbook and here you have to give the file name. So file name I'll define like this: string, then this name equal to, give the complete path. Let's say I have output folder, or maybe no output folder is there. Okay, I can create one output folder here. Right click, new folder, output, and let's take its path. And give it a name, test.xlsx. Here replace all single slashes with double slashes, replace all, close. So like this you will give the complete name, test.xls. This is the name of the file, .xlsx. Okay, so when it will try to create, it will search for this name. Okay, is it clear, Rupesh, now? Yes, no? Yes, you have to give the complete address, or you can, if you're keeping it in your project, like you're not creating any folder and you're directly keeping in your project, then you can give the simple file name also. But generally, to avoid any other problem, you have to give the complete path along with the file name and .xls format also, which format you want to create. Otherwise, how will your code get to know which extension you need or which extension you want to read? Because there can be two files. With same name but different format. Like one can be image, one can be an Excel file. They two can have same name, right? So extension is very important. Okay, now I'll come back to this Excel driver, create Excel driver. So here I was creating this. So here we are checking whatever file name you will pass. We'll check whether it ends with an XLSX or it ends with XLS. If this with this, then we'll initialize it with XSSF. If otherwise, we'll initialize it with HSSF. If anything other than this is, then it's not a correct format of Excel, so we'll just simply throw an exception, invalid file. Okay, now whatever is there in that file, I'm putting into a output stream. Okay, so this is an output stream which will have whatever will be there in this file name. For now it's an empty, so this writer will be an empty. Now whatever is there in that output stream, we are writing in workbook. Then we are closing the writer, closing the workbook. This is to create a workbook. Is it clear now? Please repeat last two lines. Sure. See, what I'm saying is, once you have like here we got the file name because everything is done. Now whatever is there in your file, you have to write into output stream first. This is the format. Okay, this is the format that you will first write into the output stream. Then that output stream is passed in one of the method called write of your workbook. This is from POI Apache. Okay, see Excel driver I created above. Here is the Excel driver. It's an instance of workbook. So Excel workbook dot write, in this I'm passing the output stream. Okay, and then closing my stream. This is always required that if you are opening a reader if you are opening an input stream or output stream, at the end you have to close both of them. So here I am closing the file writer and closing the workbook. Is it clear, Rupesh, now? You have question where we used file writer before. So here is the file writer. I created it here, output stream, and then putting the like initializing through this. I just created its instance here, and then we are simply writing into it and then closing it, closing the workbook. Rupesh, I'm again saying I know it's little confusing. Till the time you will not do it yourself, you'll not be able to understand it. So just let's cover it, go through it yourself, and then only you will be able to understand it. Okay, so I can repeat it as many times as possible, but what I suggest is let's go through it once the way I was doing. Try yourself, and then probably we can discuss in the next class. Okay, otherwise it's really difficult because it's first time you're reading this, and I'm showing you the complete code. And you guys are not used to of writing this long code, so that's why I'm saying whatever you have done till now, write yourself. Like I'm not sure how many of you have created the framework by yourself till now, but whatever is this complete code is written, create yourself. See, once you do it yourself, you'll learn how to write, and then these things will be very simple for you to understand. Okay, anyways, no issues. Okay, so is it clear till now? Can I proceed? Okay, next is opening workbook, Excel workbook. So just think what you do manually. When you have to open a workbook, okay, then again you need the file name. Okay, so just think what could go wrong. Like someone gives you a file name. So one thing is that uh, again, as I told you, that whenever you are handling a string you have to trim it. So first thing I'm doing is put a trim check, which will remove white spaces from the end. Then next is to check the file name which you're passing, is it empty or not. So if this file name will be empty, then I'll simply say file name not specified. Then you're trying to open a file which does not exist. Does not make a sense. So that's what I'm doing here. In this statement here, uh, I'm just checking whether the file exists. If it does not exist, putting a negation means if it does not exist, then we are simply throwing an exception, file does not exist. Okay, then uh, after that whatever is there in that file name, you see, your file is full of data, you need it in Java, and to read in Java we have input stream, right? This file reader is an instance of input stream. So I initialize it with this, whatever is my file name, put it into it. Now this file reader has everything in form of a stream. Okay, is it clear? So this is my file, I'm reading it into a stream, which Java can understand. Now this file name, just to use other in on other locations also, I'm just defining one private variable and assigning to it so that I can use outside this method also. Now whatever is there in that stream, that is a stream of string. You needed it, you need that in workbook format, right? So for that there is a class called workbook factory which will create your uh, input stream into workbook format. Now in Excel workbook we have everything in workbook format, like we have sheets, we have rows, like that data will be interpreted. Okay, any doubt, anything? I'll proceed after that only. Let me know if you have any doubt in this particular method. Rupesh, Arun, any doubt? Yes, Jasmeet, I'll show all the, I mean everything, like how to read data and everything. Uh, then only like this is just opening a file. I cannot show anything for now. It's not like Selenium that uh, it's not like Selenium that it will show an Excel sheet to open and show you open. It's just like it will read direct data directly. Okay, so let me complete it, then only I'll be able to show everything. Okay, so after opening the workbook, if you have to save a file, then again to write into a file, saving a file means writing into a file. So for that we have output stream, right? So whatever is there in my file, Excel file name, I'll just put it into output stream, and same thing I'll put in workbook and close it. Then save as is saving with the new name. So you will pass a new name. Then first of all you are doing a trim check, then you are doing an empty check, and then we are checking whether that file exists or not, because we have to save with the new name. If that if a file with that name already exists, then I cannot save, right? So I'll simply throw an exception, file already exists. And after that, again whatever is there in new file name will write into output stream, then we'll write into workbook and close the writer. Okay, so it's like here it's like we have a if I want to tell you, if I have to, this is my input file, let's say, and if I have an output file here, okay, then to read from here you need input stream, and to write into it you need output stream. Whatever you're doing inside, you're doing with that stream. Okay, so any doubt? Next is to close the workbook. So to close the workbook, simply call excel workbook.close method and filereader.close method. Then create sheet. So to create sheet, first of all, uh, now in an Excel sheet you have to create a sheet. So what you'll do, you'll open a Excel sheet. Okay, that's still in hung state. So if I open a sheet, okay, here you will click on it, it will create a new name and you rename it, right? So you give it a name, let's say test data. So same thing we'll do here. In our code. So here create sheet is the method name. We are passing an argument what sheet you need. Okay, then first of all I'm trimming my sheet name, then checking the empty check, same like I was doing before. Then here we have to create. So we the name which you are passing, no file with this name should exist. So first of all, I created an instance of sheet class, then I get that sheet. There is a method called get sheet. This is to get sheet from a workbook. If it is null, that means that sheet does not exist. But if it is not null, then we'll simply throw an exception, sheet already exists. But if it does not exist, then we'll call this method create sheet. This will create a sheet for us. Okay. After that, next is get row number. So it's like first of all you'll get a sheet. Let's say you get a sheet means highlighting that sheet. Then a particular row has some data. Let's say this row has some data like this. These are the columns which has certain data. Okay. Now what we are doing here is get cell count from a row. So this row has some data. Now we want to know how many cells are there in this row. For that, what we need first which sheet, which row, right? So again with this sheet name I'll do a trim check, I'll do an empty check, then we'll get that sheet. If that sheet is null, that means that sheet does not exist, we cannot give value, so we'll simply throw an exception. And we are also saying that row number cannot be less than 1. Okay, so I'm simply throwing an exception. If row is less than 1, then simply throw an exception, row index starts from 1. Now next step is I'll create a row. Then to get row on sheet we have to call this get row method. On a workbook we called get sheet method. Here on workbook we called get sheet method. On a where it is, yeah, on a sheet you will call get row method, because rows can be get from a sheet only. Okay, so this will give that row, particular row. If that row is null, then we are simply saying that there is no cell in it, that means return 0. Otherwise the method is gets last cell number. This will return you the last cell which has data. Okay, is it clear? Okay, next is get cell data. Now if a a column has some data, we need to get from it. So for that, again few checks. First is a trim check, then is an empty check, then we are getting a particular sheet, checking the sheet as null or not, then verifying the row number and cell number, then getting a row. If row is null, then if a row is null, that means that row does not have any value, so we are simply returning empty value. But if row exists, then we'll create a cell, get that cell, and then check if that cell is null. If sorry so if cell is null, then we'll simply return empty value. But if cell is not null, then we have to write some logic. Actually what happens is, in an Excel sheet, see, you can put string values or you can put integer values, right? String values are left aligned, whereas integer values are right aligned. So in POI Apache there are two different methods to read data from an Excel sheet. You can read a string value or you can read a uh, integer value. Okay, so here first of all I'm checking cell type. If cell type is numeric, then we are converting that integer or numeric value into string and then returning it. Okay, even this is not required, I can remove it. Okay, so what we are doing with this statement is, we are checking the cell type. If that cell type is numeric, then we are converting that numeric value into string and then returning. Otherwise, if it's not numeric, then we are simply returning a value get string cell value. Okay, now one more thing, here you might be seeing this cross, I mean this cross. This is because the version which I'm using, 3.15, in that there was a defect that this particular method they made it deprecated, but no other method they provided. Okay, so in 3.15 this method was made deprecated, but no other method to check the numeric type was provided. And what I've heard is that this methods like there is new method which is introduced in 3.16 which is some related to cell get cell type as enum, something related to that, and that is fixed now. Okay, so I have not checked in 3.16, probably I have downloaded today, so I'll check it now. But this works, though it's a deprecated method, but it works. Deprecated means that whenever a particular like Java, in Java a particular vendor provides a new method to do same functionality, they make older method as deprecated, though that works but is a deprecated method, a new method with a better functionality they provide. Okay, and that if a method is deprecated, Eclipse show it like this, like a cross. Okay, so is this point clear? Like we are checking the cell type, if it's numeric, converting it to string and then returning, otherwise we are directly returning a string value. Okay, so last method in it is to write data. We have read data from a Excel sheet. Now next is to write into an Excel sheet. So for that, first of all, I'm doing a trim check, then doing an empty check, then getting that sheet and getting that sheet and doing that if and checking that if sheet is null or not. If sheet is null, then we are simply throwing an exception, sheet does not exist. Okay, and then we are doing the valid row numbers and all. After that, we created a row, get that row. If that row does not exist, if that row is null, earlier we were returning 0, but this time we'll create a sheet first, sorry, create a row first. Okay, so it's very important. If your row does not exist, if your row is null, then first of all we have to create that row and then get that row to work with it. Okay, if it is not null, then we have already got that row. So in this particular sheet, let's say I want to write something in ninth row, so I'll get that row. If this row does not exist, then I'll create this row. Creating means, see, you might say that there are thousands, hundreds and thousands of rows already created. No, that's not the case. They are not created, they are just a view. They will be created only once you write into it. Once you write into a particular row, then only it will be created. So here we will get that row. If it is null, we will create that row and then get. Similarly, with same is the case with cell. On that particular row, first you'll get that cell. If that cell is null, then you'll create that cell and then get the cell. And to write into that cell, you have simple method set cell value. Whatever value you are passing, pass it. Okay, I know there are so many confusion in it. Uh, Try it yourself and you'll be able to understand. Okay, Arun, you're saying row -1 and cell -1. This I'm doing because uh, I want user to start from row number 1, but in Excel sheet it starts with 0. Okay, as you can see, I'm forcing user to start with row number 1, but in Excel sheet it starts with 0. Okay, so that's why I'm doing -1. Yeah, as like strings and every arrays, the index starts from 0. Any other questions? Anyone, any other question? Okay, so let's test this. So for that, see, I created a workbook. Next step what I'll do, uh, after creating a workbook, I'll open it. So it will be excel dot open work excel workbook. Okay, so same file name I'll pass here. After opening a workbook, let's write something into it, or let's create a sheet first. So it will be excel dot create sheet. Sorry, it should be create sheet, and sheet name, let's say I put here test data, and then after creating a sheet, next will be I'll set data, set cell data in sheet, first row, first column, and the value I can put is Saurabh, let's say, Okay, first row first cell, then first row second cell, second row first cell, and second row second cell. Here I can change it to, let's say, Rupesh. Next is maybe one. Okay, so I wrote down everything into it. After that, I need to save this file, so I'll call save method. After that, I need to close this file, so I'll call close method. Okay, so same thing I've done, like whatever I created here. First of all, I'm creating a workbook, then opening a workbook, then creating a sheet. After that, writing into it, saving, and then closing. So if I execute it, right click, run as Java application. Okay, so here I will refresh, and in the output folder you can see an Excel sheet is created and it has these values. Okay, so yeah, that's all in it. Rest, like reading from Excel sheet, probably will take in the next class. And before that, probably I want you guys to just go through this Excel sheet again and again, 2-3 times. Try writing yourself. Okay, Rupesh evaluation, basically we need to read data only in most of the cases, or write reading, creating also. Both are required. Like uh, maybe you might require a report to be created in Excel format. That time you might require writing also. Okay, that again depends on project. Like in one of my project, in one of my project, yeah, we used to create an Excel report instead of HTML report. So there we were using the same Excel file which I just mentioned here to create a report. Okay, Rupesh, you're saying why will go for such complex code rather than okay, Rupesh, see, it's a complex code, I agree, but it's complex because you're seeing it for the first time. Once you'll be used to of it, once you'll be used to of this complete code, you'll see that it's nothing. And another thing is, I have a code written in it, written, tested, working fine, right? Then I don't have to do again anything, and your report will be automatically created. You don't have to do anything manually. So the work of automation is to remove manual tasks. For that, even complex things needs to be written. Okay, just go through this code again, read it couple of times, and then probably you'll understand it. Did you get what I mean to say? Okay, Rupesh, do you have any other questions?